Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back, way back tens of thousands of years, into a world before screens, before snacks, before even the idea of weekends. Imagine this. You wake up not in your bed, but sprawled on cold dirt under a sky just fading from black to bruised blue. Your blanket, a stiff, smelly animal hide. The air bites at your skin like tiny, icy fingers. Somewhere far off, a bird you don't recognize croaks a jagged note. And there's a smell, smoke from last night's dying fire. Except, you didn't make that fire. It was the people you were with, and they're already gone hunting. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up and every muscle in your back protests. Sleeping on the bare earth isn't romantic, it's a chiropractor's fever dream. You brush leaves and tiny bugs off your tunic. Oh wait, it's not even a tunic, it's a ragged bit of deer hide tied at your waist with sinew. There's no zipper, no elastic, and definitely no brand logo. Your feet are already numb. The ground is a mosaic of frost and mud. The tribe left before sunrise because in the Stone Age, sleeping in means you just lowered your chances of eating today. That lingering smoky smell is your only connection to warmth. You try to blow on the embers like you've seen in survival videos, but all you manage is a coughing fit and a mouthful of ash. The horizon lightens. You can see your breath puff into little clouds. Your ears are catching every sound, a woodpecker tapping, a distant river rushing, and, less comforting, the heavy crack of a branch somewhere in the undergrowth. Could be a deer, could be something much less vegan-friendly. Here's a fact for you. In many Stone Age regions, dawn wasn't the peaceful, Instagram-worthy moment we imagine. It was prime predator time. Big cats, hyenas, and wolves hunted at night and into early morning. You're moving during their breakfast shift. You stand and take stock. The camp is just a shallow clearing near a big slab of rock, maybe used for shelter from wind. Someone arranged a few large stones into a fire ring, but there's nothing else. No tent poles, no folding chairs, and no breakfast bar with muffins. The Stone Age didn't do continental breakfast. The cold sinks deeper into your skin. You rub your arms, then stamp your feet, but it's like trying to get warm in a walk-in freezer. Historians still argue whether early humans migrated daily with game herds or settled in seasonal camps for weeks at a time. Right now, either scenario sounds equally miserable. You remember how you once complained about camping because your inflatable mattress lost air overnight. You'd give anything for that mattress now. Instead, you're on the lookout for threats while also trying to figure out where your next calorie is coming from. As you shuffle toward a patch of sunlight, you spot something unexpected. A low, woven mat of sticks in a shallow dip of earth. Could be a sleeping spot. Could be a trap. You back away, slowly, because while you have zero survival skills, you at least know not to blunder into a potential snare meant for wild pigs. The wind picks up, slicing through your hide, covering like it's tissue paper. You instinctively turn your back to it, hunching like a guilty caveman. Your fingers are stiff, clumsy, and pale. You rub them against your chest for warmth. A quirky tidbit here. Some prehistoric groups may have used powdered ochre, not just for art, but possibly as insect repellent or even mild sunscreen. If you had some right now, you could smear it on and at least pretend you're Stone Age chic. Without it, you're just cold and bug bait. A crow flaps overhead, cawing in what sounds like mockery. You're pretty sure it's laughing at you. You trudge toward the sound of water, hoping the tribe went that way, but all you find is a half-frozen puddle. The water's rim glitters with ice and the mud below is stamped with unfamiliar footprints. Big ones. 3 toes, claw marks. You freeze. The sun's climbing, but it's not warm. The air smells sharper now, pine, wet earth, and the faint musk of animal. Your heartbeat feels too loud, like it's giving you away. The undergrowth stirs again, but nothing emerges. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's your imagination. Maybe it's breakfast, yours or theirs. You realize that in the modern world, your morning routine is brushing your teeth while scrolling on your phone. Here, it's trying not to die before lunch. The thought is both absurd and terrifying. You wish you could laugh about it, but your teeth are chattering too hard. As the light strengthens, shadows retreat and the world opens into sharper focus. You see frost melting on leaves, drops falling like tiny beads. Somewhere ahead, the faintest wisp of smoke curls into the air. It's your only lead. You start walking toward it, every crunch of your feet on frozen ground sounding far too loud. You're already tired, already hungry, and already aware that this is just the beginning. The Stone Age doesn't care about your comfort or your complaints. The only rule here is, keep moving or you'll become part of the food chain before noon. Your stomach announces itself before you even take 10 steps toward that thin thread of smoke. It growls like some offended beast, as if to say, hey, I was promised coffee and toast, not frostbite and starvation. You push forward, your mind stuck on the question that's quickly becoming the main theme of your day. What on earth can you eat here? You spot a bush dotted with berries. Jackpot. You pluck one, hold it between your fingers, and immediately second-guess yourself. Modern you has had the luxury of grocery store trust. If it's in the produce aisle, it's edible. Stone Age you doesn't have that assurance. One wrong choice here and you might experience nature's laxative or instant neurological disaster. Historians still argue whether prehistoric diets were more meat-heavy or plant-heavy, depending on the region and season. Either way, both required serious knowledge. And here you are, staring at a berry like it's a multiple-choice question you forgot to study for. Your stomach makes the decision for you. You pop it in your mouth. It's bitter, dry, and tastes vaguely like regret. Swallowing feels like a gamble. You half expect to keel over within minutes, but nothing happens, yet. You keep moving, scanning the ground for roots or nuts. That's when you notice movement in the trees ahead. Two squirrel-like creatures with long tails, each holding something in their tiny hands. They seem to be chewing on nuts, cracking shells with ease. They pause, watch you, then vanish into the canopy with acrobatic disdain. Clearly, they know how to get breakfast here, and they're not sharing. A more promising find appears in the form of a shallow hole dug into the soil. You crouch, expecting maybe some stored food, but instead find a scattering of half-eaten tubers. Someone, animal or human, already beat you to them. A quirky tidbit here. Some Stone Age humans may have followed other animals like boars to steal the roots they unearthed. It was an early form of opportunistic foraging. You consider this for exactly 3 seconds before deciding your dignity is worth less than your hunger. You scrape up what's left and knock off the dirt. The taste is earthy, as in you can taste the earth. You chew, swallow, and pray your stomach won't file a complaint. The faint smoke is closer now, but when you arrive at the source, it's not a cozy campfire with a welcoming tribe. It's a blackened patch of ground. The fire is out, the ashes cool. Maybe hunters used it to cook something earlier this morning and moved on. There's nothing left but the smell, which is like a cruel reminder of roasted meat you'll never get. Suddenly, a sharp rustle to your left. You turn, heart thudding, to see a rabbit dart out from a bush. It freezes, ears twitching. For a split second, you imagine grabbing it, biting into survival like a true Stone Age warrior. But reality sets in. You have no weapon, no trap, and no chance. The rabbit bolts, leaving you with the humbling realization that breakfast just outran you in less than 3 seconds. A real Stone Age hunter would have used a throwing stick, snare, or maybe even coordinated with others to flush prey toward waiting spears. You have hands in desperate need of moisturizer. By late morning, the hunger feels less like an empty space and more like an all-over weakness. Your legs move slower, your breath feels heavier. You remember reading somewhere that early humans could walk for miles in search of food each day. You can barely manage a slow shuffle without imagining collapsing into a dramatic heap. You think about fish. Surely there must be fish in the river you heard earlier. You veer toward the sound of running water and find a narrow, rocky stream. The water is crystal clear, sunlight flashing on its ripples. You kneel, cupping your hands to drink, then hesitate. You remember, drinking untreated water can mean parasites, bacteria, or worse. Stone Age people may have had stronger gut microbiomes, but you're a modern organism built on filtered tap water. You sip anyway. The cold is shocking, but the water is fresh and clean, at least to your untrained senses. It soothes your throat and quiets the panic for a moment. But water isn't calories, and your body knows it. Then you spot movement in the shallows, a darting shadow between stones. Fish. Your stomach practically cheers. You plunge your hands in, splashing wildly, but the fish are gone in a blink. Turns out, fishing with your bare hands is less meditative nature skill and more instant lesson in futility. You slump onto a rock, dripping and frustrated. The sun is higher now, warming your shoulders slightly, but your energy is draining fast. In the distance, you hear something else, human voices. They're faint, muffled, maybe coming from beyond the ridge. This could mean food or danger. You stand, wobbling a little, and start toward the sound. Your hunger is now a kind of background hum, always there, making every step heavier. You imagine what the tribe might be eating. Charred meat on a stick, warm marrow from cracked bones, maybe some roasted roots. The idea almost makes you drool. But you also know you're an outsider here, and the Stone Age wasn't exactly known for its generous hospitality toward strangers. Still, your options are thin. You tighten your grip on your hide wrap and keep going, hoping you'll find a welcome fire instead of a raised spear. One way or another, you're about to find out if the Stone Age is going to feed you or finish you. You crest the low ridge, expecting to see a cluster of people, maybe a camp with smoke rising and food cooking. Instead, the voices vanish, swallowed by the wind. Below you lies a valley floor scattered with rocks and patches of tall, yellowed grass. There's no sign of human life, just an unsettling silence broken by the faint buzzing of insects. You stand there, catching your breath, when you finally admit the obvious. You have nothing. No spear, no bow, no knife, not even a sharpened stick. The Stone Age didn't exactly hand out starter kits. You remember those survival shows where contestants make a knife from scratch. They chip flakes off a bigger rock until it forms a cutting edge. The technique is called flint knapping, and real experts make it look like origami with stone. You squat beside a flat gray rock, pick up a rounder one, and smack them together. The result, a dull thunk and a stinging pain in your fingers as the rock bounces away. You try again, aiming for a precise strike. This time you chip off a fragment, but it's more like a gravel pebble than a usable blade. You stare at it in your palm, trying to imagine skinning a rabbit with something the size of a thumbnail. Not happening. Historians still argue whether early stone tools were primarily made by specialists in a group, or if most adults had at least basic knapping skills. Either way, you are not one of them. You decide to try a different tactic, find wood for a spear. You wander the valley edge until you come across a downed tree, its branches dry and brittle. You pick a straight one about as long as you are tall and try to snap it to size. It resists. You twist, push, pull, and even stomp on it, but the wood bends without breaking. Eventually, you resort to scraping it against a rock until it frays enough to snap. The end result is jagged and splintery, more backyard broom handle than primal hunting weapon. You test its heft. It's clumsy, heavy at one end, and utterly unbalanced. But it's something. A quirky tidbit here. Some early humans used fire to harden the tips of wooden spears, making them last longer and penetrate deeper. Of course, that requires having a fire, which you still don't. The sun is climbing, the valley floor shimmering with heat. You squint across it and spot a cluster of boulders that might offer shade. You make your way over, using your spear as a walking stick. The closer you get, the more you notice. The The rocks are stained dark in places, and scattered at the base are broken bones. Not human, but definitely animal, deer maybe. The bones are cracked open, the inside scooped clean. Something ate here, and it wasn't just scavenging for fun. A shiver slides down your spine. You glance over your shoulder at the open grass. Without proper tools, you're not just a bad hunter, you're also an easy target. You retreat from the boulders, climbing to a higher spot for a better view. The landscape is bigger than you imagined. Rolling hills, dark forests in the distance, and a river winding like a silver ribbon. Somewhere in all that space, the tribe that left camp before you must be working, tracking, trapping, gathering. You're doing none of those things. You try again with the rock and stick method, hopping to at least get a point on your spear. After 20 minutes, you have a tip sharp enough to maybe poke a fish, if the fish agreed to stay still and politely lean in. You're sweating, your hands ache, and the tip keeps chipping into a blunt stub every time you test it against the ground. The realization sinks in. Even the simplest Stone Age tool takes time, patience, and practice. You can't just Google how to make a spear and fast forward to the good part. Every step is earned. Your stomach interrupts with another loud protest. You look at your crude weapon and think of all the animals out there, fleet-footed deer, wary hares, birds that vanish at the slightest sound. Without a proper tool, your best chance of eating one is if it dies of old age in your lap. You sling the stick over your shoulder and start moving again. Somewhere there has to be a better option, an edible plant, a slow-moving creature, or maybe someone willing to share. But as the minutes stretch into hours, the truth becomes harder to ignore. In the Stone Age, having no tools isn't an inconvenience. It's a countdown. The grass sways in the valley wind, but the sound you hear now isn't just the rustle of plants. It's a low, deliberate crack, like something large stepping on a branch. You freeze mid-step, your spear angled clumsily in front of you. Your modern brain wants to label the noise as a deer. Your deeper, more primal brain whispers, what if it's not? A shadow shifts between the tall grass about 50 feet away. You can't make out the shape, only that it's big, bigger than you at least. It moves slowly, not darting or bounding like prey. Whatever it is, it's not afraid. Fact, in many parts of the Stone Age world, you'd be sharing territory with predators that saw humans as just another protein source. Lions, leopards, cave hyenas, even saber-toothed cats in earlier periods. You suddenly realize that you've walked into their breakfast shift, and you're dressed like the special of the day. You crouch, your heart beating so loudly you wonder if the thing in the grass can hear it. Your spear feels more like a novelty toothpick now. If you were a real Stone Age hunter, you might have a group with you, half the tribe armed with stone-tipped weapons, moving as one. Instead, you've got yourself a stick and an overwhelming desire to rewind to 20 minutes ago when you were just worrying about berries. The movement stops. You stare at the spot, waiting. Seconds stretch into a full minute. Then, without warning, the grass parts and a massive boar bursts out, tusks gleaming, eyes wild. Relief and panic hit you at the same time. It's not a predator, but it is an animal that can mess you up fast. Stone Age humans hunted boars for meat, but they also respected their strength and aggression. These animals can charge at 40 kilometers an hour, and you're about 3 steps from the get-flattened range. You throw yourself sideways as it barrels past, your stick whistling uselessly through the air. The boar vanishes into the grass again, leaving your pulse hammering. Historians still argue whether early humans more often hunted big game directly or scavenged carcasses left by predators. After that boar encounter, scavenging is starting to sound like a respectable career choice. You stay crouched for a while, scanning for more movement. The wind shifts, and with it comes another sound, this one deep and guttural. You turn your head slowly toward the tree line at the far edge of the valley. 2 yellow eyes reflect the sunlight for a fraction of a second before blinking out of view. Your skin prickles. That was no boar. It's impossible to tell what it was from here, but you know this much. You're in open ground with no backup, and something is watching you. A quirky tidbit here. Some researchers think early humans might have learned to mimic predator calls, either to scare them off or to lure them closer for ambush. You are not feeling nearly experimental enough to test that theory. You decide to head for the river. You need cover, water, and maybe a chance at catching something smaller than yourself. But every step toward it feels like an invitation for whatever's in those trees to follow. The riverbank comes into view. Smooth stones, patches of reeds, a few small birds picking along the shore. You kneel, scoop another drink of icy water, and glance over your shoulder. Nothing. Still, you can't shake the feeling that you're part of someone else's hunt now. You scan the shallows for fish again, trying to focus on food instead of fear. The water shimmers with light and movement, but your last attempt at hand fishing ended in humiliation. Still, hunger wins over pride. You plunge your hands in, keeping them still this time, waiting. Minutes pass. Your fingers ache from the cold, but then a flicker. You snap your hands together, lift, and yes, a small, wriggling fish flops in your palms. It's tiny, barely enough for a bite, but in this world, even a mouthful matters. You take it to a flat rock, bash it once, and eat it raw. It's slippery, salty, and so far from sushi it's almost funny. But it's the first actual protein you've had since you woke up. The satisfaction is short-lived. That sound, the low crack of a branch, comes again, this time much closer. You grip your spear and back into the reeds, crouching low. If the Stone Age has taught you anything already, it's this. Sometimes you're the hunter, and sometimes you're just the thing that makes another creature's day better. The reeds sway gently around you, masking your outline but also limiting your view. You crouch, motionless, every sense tuned to the faint noises beyond. The crack of a branch again, closer this time, followed by a sound you can't quite place. It's not a growl, not a roar, more like a low, breathy huff. Whatever it is, it's moving along the tree line, parallel to the river. You realize you can't stay here forever. The sun is climbing, and with it comes a different problem: heat. Out in the open, you'll roast. Here in the reeds, you're damp and crouched like a frog with bad knees. You need somewhere safe to rest, a place to hide from both predators and the elements. The Stone Age version of shelter isn't a cozy cabin or a nylon tent. It's whatever you can throw together fast from what's around you: branches, leaves, animal hides. Historians still argue whether early humans preferred open rock overhangs or fully enclosed huts depending on climate and threat levels. You take either right now, as long as it doesn't involve crouching in a swamp. You edge out of the reeds, moving upstream. The river curves sharply, and there, like a miracle, you spot a slab of rock jutting out over the water. Beneath it is a shallow recess, not quite a cave, but enough to provide shade and some cover. You hurry toward it, scanning for signs of recent animal activity. A quirky tidbit here. Some groups are thought to have used piles of thorny branches to block cave or shelter entrances at night, acting like a prehistoric security door. You make a mental note to find something thorny later, if you make it to later. The recess is barely tall enough to crouch in, but compared to open ground, it feels like a fortress. You slide inside, the rock cool and damp against your back. From here, you can see the river glittering in the sunlight, but you're hidden from anything watching from the trees. Still, it's not enough. Without a roof of leaves or hides, you'll be exposed to rain, or worse, the freezing chill that'll roll in after sunset. So you start gathering materials. You strip long reeds from the riverbank, drag over branches from nearby, and pile them in front of the recess to break up your outline. It's clumsy work. Your hands ache, your shoulders burn, and every rustle in the undergrowth sends you into a frozen crouch until you're sure it's just the wind. After half an hour, you have something resembling a barrier. It's not predator-proof, but it's something between you and the open world. You sit back panting. The smell of wet earth and fresh-cut plants fills your nose. For a moment, you almost feel secure. Then you hear it, a single, heavy footstep. You freeze, peering through a gap in your reed wall. There's nothing there, just the rippling water and the distant shimmer of heat above the grass. Your mind tells you it could have been a falling branch. Your gut tells you otherwise. Either way, you don't have the energy to keep watch forever. You stretch out on the damp ground, the coolness seeping into your skin, and close your eyes just for a moment. It's a mistake. You jolt awake to find the sunlight lower, the shadows longer. You've slept through a chunk of the afternoon. The air feels heavier now, and the temperature is already dropping. Somewhere far off, you hear that same low huff you heard before, closer than it should be. Your shelter is better than nothing, but it's not going to keep you warm through the night. You think about the hides the others had this morning, how they wrapped them tightly and tucked in at the edges. Without one, you'll lose heat fast. You glance at your crude spear, then out at the riverbank, wondering if you should risk moving to find better materials, or if staying put is your best shot. In the Stone Age, there's no right answer. Every choice is a gamble, and the stakes are always survival. You decide to risk it. Staying in your damp little recess will keep you hidden, sure, but it will also suck the warmth out of you once the sun drops, and the Stone Age night isn't something you want to face while shivering. Warmth means fire, and fire means you need water you can drink without it turning your insides into a bacteria party. The river is right there, flowing steady and cold. You wade in just ankle deep, careful of the slippery stones. The water is so clear you can see your own pale toes flexing beneath the surface. You scoop a drink, letting it splash against your cracked lips, and instantly feel your temperature dip further. It's cold enough to make your teeth ache. Fact, even in the Stone Age, humans had to be careful about where they drank. Contaminated water could wipe out whole groups, and though they didn't know about microbes, they learned from experience which sources made people sick. Streams with moving water were safer than stagnant pools, but even safe, water could hide parasites. You drink sparingly, listening to the gurgle of the current. It's peaceful enough that for a moment you forget the ever-present threat of becoming a headline in some prehistoric cave painting. Stranger arrives, immediately regrets it. But hydration isn't your only problem. You need to store some of this water for later, in case you can't find another stream before nightfall. Of course, there are no bottles, no canteens, not even a hollowed-out gourd nearby. A quirky tidbit here. Some Stone Age people carried water in animal bladders, stomachs, or even large leaves folded and bound into pouches. You glance around at the sparse vegetation, wondering which plant would forgive you for turning it into a makeshift jug. The wind shifts, and with it comes the smell of something sweet, pungent, but inviting. You follow it upriver until you find a spot where reeds give way to a patch of muddy earth. Animal tracks crowd the bank here, hoof prints, paw prints, and something else. A wide, rounded impression with deep claw marks. That's not great. Historians still argue whether early humans deliberately competed with predators at water holes or avoided them entirely. You're leaning toward the avoid camp as you notice fresh mud in the claw prints. Your thirst is quenched, but now your skin prickles with a new problem. You're in a prime ambush spot. Big predators love these areas because prey animals have to come drink. And right now, you are both prey and very conveniently located. You move back downstream, eyes flicking constantly between the tree line and the river. The sound of rushing water is broken by a sudden plop. You whip your head toward it, just a fish breaking the surface. Still, your heart pounds. Everything here feels like it's watching you, even the plants. At a bend in the river, you spot a tangle of fallen branches jammed together. You pull at them and discover a half-submerged hollow log. Water's pooled inside, dark and still. Perfect for holding more if you can haul it. You wrestle it onto the bank, water pouring out in muddy streams. It's heavy, but after rolling it to your shelter spot, you realize it might work as a crude storage trough. Fill it, cover it with reeds, and you might have something to sip through the night. The sun is lower now, glinting red on the water. You fill the log slowly, the surface trembling with each splash. It feels like a victory, small but real. You sit beside it, watching the last light play on the river's ripples. Then you hear the sound again. Not the huff this time, but a long, slow lap of water from just around the bend. Something big is drinking. You grip your spear, crouch low, and remind yourself that you came here for water. Just water. You'll have to hope the other thirsty thing nearby isn't in the mood for a side dish. You back slowly from the river's edge, every step careful not to crunch a twig. The sound of drinking continues, a slow, deliberate rhythm, then stops. The silence that follows is worse. Your skin tightens with the sense that something is now listening for you. You retreat to your shelter, clutching your crude spear. Hunger gnaws again, and it's clear you can't ride out the night without more calories. That means hunting, or at least trying to. In the Stone Age, hunting wasn't a lone wolf activity. Most of the time, it was a coordinated group effort, with roles divided between trackers, drivers, and ambushers. Historians still argue whether this was mostly about efficiency or safety, but you're pretty sure it was about both. Alone, your chances are, well, slim, but your stomach doesn't care about odds. You set out upriver, scanning the bank for signs of small game. Fresh tracks dot the mud, mostly birds and something rabbit-sized. That's more your speed. You follow the prints into the grass, crouching low, spear ready. A flicker of movement there by a fallen log. A rabbit nibbling at leaves. You freeze, heart thudding, every muscle tense. The trick, you recall, is to move slowly until you're within striking distance, then, well, hope for the best. You creep forward, using the log as cover. The rabbit's ears twitch, but it doesn't bolt. You inch closer, adjusting your grip. Then you lunge. The rabbit vanishes before your spear even hits the ground. You stare at the empty spot, panting. Hunting, it turns out, is less about pouncing and more about patience, and possibly being less clumsy than you currently are. A quirky tidbit here. Some Stone Age hunters used nets woven from plant fibers to trap small animals, or dug pit traps along game trails. You have neither the time nor the skill for that, so you resort to following the trail in hopes of finding something slower, or less observant. The trail leads you to a patch of open ground littered with holes, burrows. You kneel, peering into one, and catch the faint smell of animal musk. If you could block the exits and smoke them out, you might actually catch something. Of course, smoking them out requires fire, which you still haven't managed. You settle for waiting near one of the holes, your spear ready. The sun dips lower, shadows stretching like long fingers across the ground. Minutes pass. Then a twitch of movement, small ears appear in the opening. You tense, ready to strike, but the animal retreats again, leaving you staring at an empty hole like an impatient cat. By now the light is fading and your hunger feels heavier, dragging at your limbs. You know you should head back before darkness traps you in the open, but then you hear it, rustling in the grass behind you. You whirl, spear raised, and spot something waddling slowly through the brush. It's a bird, a plump one with stubby wings and a way of moving that suggests it's not great at escaping. You stalk forward, every step slow, until you're close enough to jab. This time, your aim is better. The spear strikes, the bird flails, and you manage to pin it. Your victory is small and messy, but it's food. You carry it back to your shelter, glancing over your shoulder at every sound. Without fire, you'll have to eat it raw or figure out some kind of cooking method on the spot. The Stone Age wasn't kind to picky eaters. You pluck a few feathers, tear into the meat, and chew slowly, ignoring the metallic tang. It's chewy, stringy, and still warm. Not exactly appetizing, but the surge of energy it gives you is worth it. As the last light fades, you hear a howl in the distance, long, rising, and answered by another. Wolves. You hunch deeper into your shelter, your crude spear across your knees, the taste of raw bird still in your mouth. Hunting may have fed you tonight, but it's also left you smelling like fresh prey. The howls fade into the distance, but they leave behind an echo in your chest, a reminder that even when the immediate threat is gone, the fear doesn't leave with it. You lean back against the cold rock, chewing the last tough strands of bird meat while your mind drifts toward the possibility of something safer than hunting: foraging. It sounds simpler, doesn't it? Just walk around, pluck things, and eat them. But in the Stone Age, grab and chew could just as easily mean grab and die. You've already had one questionable berry this morning. You don't want to make that mistake twice. Historians still argue whether early humans relied more heavily on plant foods or if hunting dominated their diets. Either way, plant knowledge wasn't optional, it was survival. And right now, you have the plant knowledge of a confused tourist in a hardware store. You wait until the sky starts to pale with early morning light before leaving your shelter. The air is damp and heavy, and dew coats the reeds and grass. Your breath puffs in the cool air as you set out along the riverbank. The first thing you spot is a cluster of berries again, red, glossy, almost too perfect. You remember reading somewhere that bright colors can be nature's way of saying, "Don't touch me." But then again, some safe foods look the same. You crouch, sniff them, and they smell like berries. That's it. You pass for now. A little farther along, you find a patch of tall, grass-like plants with seeds clustered near the top. Some early humans are believed to have collected wild grains like these, stripping them into baskets and grinding them into meal. You have no basket, no grinder, and no patience, but you strip a handful anyway, chewing the raw seeds. They're dry, chewy, and about as filling as air, but they take the edge off your hunger. A quirky tidbit here. Some groups used animal fat to bind crushed seeds into high-calorie cakes they could carry on long hunts. You imagine your handful of grass seeds held together with the greasy luxury of roasted marrow. Then you imagine how far away you are from that luxury and keep walking. You venture into a patch of low shrubs, leaves broad and shiny. Beneath them, tuber-like roots twist in the soil. You dig one up, scrape it with a rock, and sniff. Earthy, slightly sweet. Maybe safe. You nibble a corner, holding it in your mouth without swallowing, waiting for the burn of poison. Nothing. You chew and swallow. The taste isn't bad, starchy and grounding. You start pulling up more, but you also know you're guessing. Even if you get lucky now, one wrong plant could ruin your chances of making it through the day. Suddenly, a sharp rustle. You freeze, crouching low. The sound comes from the shrubs behind you, something moving fast and low. Your spear is in your hand before you think, but the thing that bursts out isn't a predator. It's a small deer. It bolts past you, vanishing into the trees, leaving only the pounding of its hooves. You let out a breath and continue, now scanning the higher branches for food. You spot nuts, small, hard, and clustered like little brown stones. You smash one with a rock, revealing a pale kernel. You taste it cautiously. Bitter, not the good kind. You spit it out. By midday, you've collected a modest stash. A few more tubers, some edible-looking leaves, a small handful of seeds. It's not much, but it's something you can eat without chasing it for miles. You head back toward the shelter, but on the way you notice a tree trunk covered in thick amber-colored sap. You poke it with a stick. It's sticky, sweet-smelling. Sap like this might be edible in small amounts or used as glue for tools. Right now, it's tempting enough that you scrape a bit onto your finger and taste it. It's sweet, really sweet, but it clings to your teeth like candy that's plotting against you. The sun dips lower as you return to your little rock recess. The wind is picking up again, and you know the temperature will drop soon. You sit, nibbling on tubers, your mouth coated in sap, your hands gritty with dirt. Foraging hasn't exactly filled you up, but it's kept you moving and alive. Still, the howls from last night are fresh in your memory. You know you'll have to stay alert tonight because wolves don't care if you're full or starving. They just care if you're available. The wind has a bite to it now, slipping between the reeds you stacked as a makeshift wall. You huddle lower in your recess, chewing the last of the tubers you found earlier. The taste is dull, but it fills the silence, and right now, silence is both a blessing and a curse. In the modern world, a small scrape is annoying. In the Stone Age, it's a potential death sentence. and that reality hits you when you notice a faint sting along your forearm. You glance down to find a thin, angry red line trailing from elbow to wrist. Somewhere along the way, probably wrestling with reeds or scraping at roots, you've cut yourself. It's shallow, but you know enough to be worried. There's no soap, no antiseptic, no just grab a Band-Aid. Infections in the Stone Age were swift and often fatal. Historians still argue whether early humans had systematic ways to treat wounds beyond basic cleaning and bandaging with natural fibers. Some evidence points to herbal poultices. Other finds suggest that luck and a strong immune system were just as important. You head to the river, holding your arm away from your body. The cold water bites at your skin as you rinse the cut. The grit washes away, leaving the wound raw and stinging. You look around for anything that might help seal it: moss, sap, even clay. A quirky tidbit here. Some prehistoric groups may have used spider silk as an early wound dressing, thanks to its mild antibacterial properties. You see no spider silk nearby, and frankly, you're not in the mood to negotiate with an arachnid landlord for medical supplies. You do find a patch of moss growing on a shaded rock. It's damp and springy, and it smells like a mix of earth and rain. You press it gently against the cut, tying it in place with a strip torn from the edge of your hide wrap. It's crude, but it holds. Back at your shelter, you try not to think about how quickly a wound can go bad here. Without antibiotics, even a small infection can spread. Fever, swelling, weakness, all of them could take you out before you even realize you're in trouble. The sun is dipping toward the horizon again, and the air takes on that sharp evening edge. You feel the day's fatigue settling into your muscles. Your hands are rough and scraped from gathering food. Your feet are sore from hours of uneven ground. You lean back against the rock, telling yourself to stay alert until it's fully dark. But the problem is, Stone Age night doesn't come with comforting city glow. It's black, deep, and complete, with no safety net. Every sound is amplified, every movement a possible threat. Somewhere behind you, deep in the trees, a branch snaps. You tense, spear in hand, peering into the darkness. The shadows between the trunks seem to shift and stretch. Then silence again. Your arm throbs where the cut is bandaged. You shift to get comfortable, though comfortable is a concept that's beginning to feel like a modern myth. You chew another bite of tuber, its earthy taste grounding you for a moment. Then a long, low growl slides through the air, so faint you almost think you imagined it. Almost. You glance down at your crude weapon and think about how easily it could break. Your heart is already racing. Wounded, hungry, and alone, you realize that you've just made yourself more appealing to anything out there looking for an easy target. The growl fades, replaced by the hiss of wind through the reeds. You keep still, listening for a repeat, but the only other sound is the occasional creak of tree limbs. It's enough to remind you of the most unshakable truth of the Stone Age. The weather doesn't care about you, and it's about to prove it. You wake before dawn to a distant rumble. At first, you think it's your stomach again, but the vibration in the ground tells you otherwise. The air is thick, heavy, charged. Then you see the horizon, black clouds, rolling like ink spilled into the sky. Historians still argue whether early humans migrated seasonally more for food or for shelter from extreme weather, but right now, you'd move purely for the second reason. Your shelter, as it stands, is a joke against what's coming. You scramble to reinforce it, stacking more reeds, wedging stones against the base to hold them down. You drag a heavy branch across the entrance, leaving just enough space to squeeze in. It's crude, but you're racing the first fat drops of rain that splatter against the ground. The quirky fact here: some prehistoric groups in colder climates used animal hides sewn together with sinew to make near-waterproof shelters. You have neither hides nor sewing skills, so when the rain comes in earnest, it punches through your reed wall in a dozen places. Within minutes, you're wet to the bone. The temperature drops fast, the kind of cold that burrows into you and stays. The wind slams against the rock face, sending fine spray through the gaps. You curl up tighter, pressing against the wall, hoping your body heat will cling to you. Thunder booms overhead, so close it rattles the stones beneath you. Lightning flashes, lighting the forest in stark, ghostly white before plunging it back into darkness. For a moment, you see the silhouette of the trees swaying violently and something large moving between them. Whether it's an animal or just a trick of the light, you can't tell. The rain seeps into everything. Your hide wrap your hair, the moss on your wound. You shiver so hard your teeth knock together. In the modern world, you'd crank up the heat or at least grab a blanket. Here, you just have to endure. Water pools at your feet, creeping higher as the storm drags on. You bail it out with your hands, splashing it toward the entrance, but the wind blows it right back in. At one point, you wedge the moss bandage tighter against your arm, but the dampness has already soaked it through. The cold starts to make your movements clumsy. You fumble with the branch at the entrance, trying to block more of the wind, but your fingers feel slow and swollen. That's the danger here. Not just being wet, but letting the cold sap away your strength until you can't think straight. Finally, after what feels like hours, the thunder fades to a distant rumble. The rain lightens, then stops altogether. You peel yourself away from the wall, every muscle stiff. Outside, the world smells of wet earth and crushed leaves. The air is sharp, almost sweet, but you're too drained to enjoy it. You step into the clearing and see the river swollen, frothing, and brown. Trees drip heavy beads of water, and a low mist curls between them. It's eerily quiet, as if everything, animals included, is waiting to see if the storm is truly gone. You drag yourself back into the shelter, dripping and shaking. Your mind drifts to the fact that in the Stone Age, weather like this could mean the difference between survival and death, not just for individuals, but entire groups. A single week of cold rain could wipe out food supplies, scatter tribes, and force desperate moves into unknown territories. Right now, you can barely imagine making it through the night without collapsing. And the worst part, the clouds on the horizon suggest there's more to come. You've been wet and cold long enough for your bones to start complaining about it. In the dim light of your redendrock alcove, you sit hunched forward, hands cupped, staring at the pile of damp twigs you've been collecting for days. Fire, that's the one thing that could save you right now. Heat, light, the smell of smoke curling upward to tell predators you're not an easy meal. But wanting fire in the Stone Age is one thing, starting it is another entirely. Historians still argue whether early humans first learned to control natural fire from lightning strikes before figuring out how to create it themselves. Either way, the skill you need right now isn't in your toolbox. Your entire toolbox is a sharp rock and an attitude. You try the friction method, spinning a stick between your palms against a flat piece of wood you scavenged from a fallen branch. It's awkward. Your hands slip, the stick wobbles, and all you've managed after 10 minutes is a groove in the wood and a fresh blister forming on your palm. A quirky tidbit. Some prehistoric groups may have used dried animal dung as tinder. It catches more easily than raw plant matter. You glance outside. No dung in sight. You're not sure whether to feel relieved or disappointed. You keep at it, trying to build speed. The cold makes your fingers clumsy and you curse under your breath when the stick snaps. Fine. Flint and steel, except you have no steel. But maybe flint and another rock. You take your sharp-edged stone and bash it against another, sending a few half-hearted sparks into the air. None land where they should. You rearrange your damp twigs into a loose nest, adding the driest scraps of bark you can find. More sparks, more frustration. Your shoulders ache from hunching, your hands are raw and still nothing but faint smoke that disappears before it even smells like promise. You pause, thinking about how many early humans failed just like this, and how many simply stayed near someone who already knew what they were doing. You have no one. By now, the cold has wormed into your core. You rub your arms, rocking slightly, as if motion alone might warm you. Your stomach growls, but you don't dare waste energy searching for food until you've at least tried again. So you do. Another attempt with the friction method, this time breathing on the faint smoke, coaxing it like it's a shy animal. For a heartbeat, you think you've got it. An ember glows faintly in the bark fibers. You lean in, careful, steady. And then a drop of water from the reeds above lands dead center, killing it instantly. You sit back and laugh, just one sharp, incredulous sound, because really, what else can you do? The Stone Age doesn't care about your effort. Outside, the mist is thickening again, dampening everything further. You give up, curling into the driest corner, trying to conserve what little warmth you have left. The truth is clear. Without fire, the cold owns you. And somewhere in the trees, a howl rises again, reminding you that you're not just losing to the weather, you're losing to the world. The howl fades, replaced by the soft patter of rain that never seems to fully leave. You shift, muscles stiff, when a new sound cuts through the night, footsteps. Not the light, darting steps of an animal, but the heavier, deliberate pace of someone human. You freeze, clutching your crude spear. The steps stop just outside the entrance, and then a shadow moves. A figure crouches, peering in. The light from the overcast dawn outlines a face painted with streaks of ash and ochre, hair bound back with strips of hide. Their eyes lock on yours, not hostile but sharp, assessing. Historians still argue whether encounters between unfamiliar groups in the Stone Age were more often violent or cooperative. The evidence swings both ways. In this moment, you're praying for the latter. The stranger tilts their head, saying something in a language you can't even begin to place. It's musical but clipped, like a mix of gesture and sound. You stay still, trying to look non-threatening. Slowly, they motion for you to follow. You hesitate. Going with them could mean food and shelter or being marched straight into trouble, but staying here means starving in the cold. You stand. The walk is quiet, though your guide glances back every so often as if to check you haven't bolted. You pass through a grove where the smell of smoke teases the air. Then, ahead, you see it. A cluster of low shelters made from a mix of hides, branches, and piled stones. A fire pit in the center sends thin streams of smoke into the sky. The people here, 6, maybe 7, pause in their work to watch you. Their eyes are wary. You recognize that look. You are the unknown factor, the possible threat. A woman with hair braided tight hands your guide something, a strip of dried meat perhaps, before disappearing back into one of the shelters. A quirky tidbit. Some anthropologists think early human social groups were rarely larger than 20 to 30 individuals, small enough to share resources but big enough to defend themselves. Right now, this little circle feels like its own guarded universe. Your guide offers you the strip of meat. You take it slowly, nodding thanks. The taste is smoky and salty, and it feels like the first real food you've had in days. But as you chew, you notice the quiet conversations happening around you, quick glances, subtle nods, hands resting on stone-tipped spears. You're not one of them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You try to mimic their posture, keeping your movements slow, letting them see your empty hands when you're not holding the meat. Over the next hour, you watch them work. One person scraping a hide clean with a flint blade, another shaping a spear point, a child darting around with a bundle of sticks. You can feel their eyes still on you, even when they pretend otherwise. Trust in the Stone Age isn't given, it's earned. And earning it usually means proving you can contribute. But what can you offer when you can't even start a fire on your own? As the light begins to fade again, your guide gestures toward the edge of the camp, indicating a space near the fire but not quite in the circle. A safe distance for them. You settle in, the warmth making your whole body sigh in relief. But you can't shake the thought. If you mess up, you'll be out here again, alone, with the cold and the dark. The flames crackle. The smell of cooking meat makes your stomach ache in the best way. But the conversation around you, you're not part of it, not yet. You wake to the smell of smoke and the low murmur of voices. The fire in the center of the camp is already alive, sending a steady ribbon of warmth through the crisp morning air. For the first time in days, you've slept without shivering yourself awake every hour. But now comes the cost of that comfort: work. One of the older men, broad-shouldered with a heavy ridge of brow that makes him look perpetually unimpressed, drops a bundle of long, thin shafts beside you. He taps the blunt end of one, then points toward a pile of stone flakes. The message is clear: make yourself useful. Historians still argue whether Stone Age communities assign tasks strictly by skill and age, or if everyone learned a little bit of everything. Either way, your everything is currently a blank slate. You pick up a shaft and examine it. It's smooth, stripped of bark, straight enough to fly if you knew what you were doing. The stone flakes are sharp, but attaching them, that's another mystery. A young woman squats beside you, watching your clumsy first attempt at notching the wood. After a moment, she takes the shaft from your hands and demonstrates, placing the flake, binding it with sinew and tight, even wraps, and sealing it with a smear of sticky resin from a clay bowl. She hands it back, raising an eyebrow as if to say, "Now you." Your fingers stick to the resin. The sinew keeps slipping. You drop the stone point twice, earning a quiet snort from someone across the fire. By the time you finish one crude spear, she's made 3 perfect ones. A quirky tidbit: resin and sinew weren't just glue, they were survival tech, holding together weapons that could mean the difference between eating dinner and being dinner. Without them, you'd be stuck throwing rocks and hopping for the best. The rest of the day is a steady grind of tasks: stripping bark, pounding dried roots into powder, fetching water from the river in heavy, skin-lined pouches. Your muscles ache in places you didn't know existed. Midday, a small group prepares to hunt. They move like a single organism, checking spears, adjusting straps on hide slings, smearing dark pigment on their faces. You're not invited, and honestly, you're relieved. The thought of keeping pace with them through the forest is exhausting enough to make your legs hurt preemptively. Instead, you're sent to gather berries and tubers with 2 others. They barely speak, communicating with sharp gestures and occasional grunts. At one point, one of them smacks your hand away from a cluster of berries with a sharp ch. You realize belatedly that they're poisonous, bright red, glossy, and lethal in just a few bites. That's the Stone Age for you. Everything is either food, poison, or predator bait, and sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. By the time the hunting party returns with a pair of hares and something that looks vaguely like a wild chicken, your body feels like it's been wrung out and left to dry. You watch them skin and gut the animals with swift efficiency, their hands moving in a rhythm born of necessity. When the meat roasts over the fire, the smell alone makes your mouth water. You get a small portion, and though it's chewy and slightly smoky, it's a feast compared to your solitary meals of bitter roots and river water. Still, you can feel the gap between you and them. Around the fire, they share inside jokes in their language, pass tools without asking, anticipate each other's needs. You sit just outside that circle, fed, warm, alive, but not belonging. As night falls, you realize survival here isn't just about food and shelter. It's about trust. And right now, you're still an outsider peering in. Morning breaks with the pale, washed-out light that promises rain before noon. You're already sore from the previous day's work, but there's no such thing as a rest day here. Before you've even fully shaken the sleep from your eyes, the older man with the permanent frown points toward the forest and hands you a bundle of crude traps, loops of twisted sinew attached to bent sticks. Historians still argue whether trapping in the Stone Age was primarily for small game, or if it was used as a secondary tactic alongside active hunting. Judging from these flimsy-looking snares, you're guessing small game is the goal. 2 others join you: the young woman who helped with spear making, and a wiry man whose silence feels like it could cut through stone. They lead the way, placing traps near well-worn animal paths, under low-hanging branches, and along the edges of brush where hares might dart. You try to copy their technique, but your loops are either too loose or too tight, the stick anchors crooked. The wiry man glances at your handiwork and mutters something you don't understand, but his tone doesn't suggest praise. You're painfully aware that if nothing gets caught, you've wasted time and energy. A quirky tidbit. Some prehistoric snares were baited with the scent of crushed plants or animal fat, though others relied purely on placement and patience. You try adding a few crushed berries to one trap. At worst, it won't work. At best, you might get lucky. The rain starts as a drizzle, turning the forest into a maze of wet leaves and dripping branches. Your hide wrap soaks through quickly, clinging to your shoulders. Every step squelches in the mud. By the time you return to camp, your feet are numb and your traps, well, they look like something a distracted child might have made. You drop them in the designated pile and step back, trying not to meet anyone's eyes. Later, when the others check the snares, they bring back 2 hares and a squirrel, none from your traps. You eat your share that night, but the meat tastes faintly of guilt. You know you didn't contribute. Around the fire, you notice the subtle shifts in body language. Fewer glances in your direction. No one hands you tools. The young woman who'd once shown you how to bind a spear doesn't sit beside you this time. Trust here is like fire. It flares up if fed, but dies quickly when neglected. And unlike in the modern world, there's no hiding behind polite excuses or next time. If you can't keep up, you're not just a burden, you're a liability. As the night deepens, the camp grows quiet except for the occasional crackle of the fire and the distant rush of the river. You curl into your furs, feeling the cold creeping in at the edges again. You think about the forest, the endless wet leaves, the animals that never stop moving, the traps that work only if you know exactly what you're doing. You also think about your chances if the group decides you've had enough of their resources. Alone, you lasted days. Here, you've lasted longer, but without earning your place, you can feel the clock ticking down on your welcome. The rain finally stops overnight, leaving the world smelling of damp earth and crushed leaves. You wake to the sound of voices, not the usual quiet murmurs of camp life, but sharper, urgent tones. When you sit up, you see why. A group from the camp is gathered near the edge of the clearing, pointing toward a trail of broken brush leading into the trees. Something big passed nearby in the night. Historians still argue whether large predators in the Stone Age, lions, bears, massive wolves, actively hunted humans or simply attacked when territory lines were crossed. Whatever the truth, the people here treat it as a threat. Spears are passed out. Those who aren't part of the defense cluster together with the children near the fire. You get handed a spear too, though you suspect it's more about not letting you stand around looking useless than about trusting you to hold the line. The hunt or defense, depending on how this goes, moves into the forest. The air feels heavy, sound swallowed up by the dampness. Every few steps, someone pauses, listening. You mimic their caution, heart pounding. The trail leads to a rocky outcrop where claw marks gouge the bark of nearby trees. Fresh. The wiry man kneels, pressing a hand to the ground, then looks up and makes a short, sharp sound. The group fans out. You try to do the same, but your inexperience shows. You step on a stick, the crack echoing in the silence. Every head snaps toward you. The look the older man gives could strip bark from a tree. A quirky tidbit. Some prehistoric hunters used controlled noise to flush prey toward ambushers, but this was not that moment. You've just made the opposite of a good impression. The tension breaks when the trail peters out near a shallow stream. Whatever passed through here is long gone. The group turns back toward camp, their formation loose now, but no one speaks to you on the way. Back in the clearing, the atmosphere is different. There's relief, yes, but also an unspoken acknowledgement. Danger is everywhere, and mistakes aren't just embarrassing. They can get people killed. You help stoke the fire that night, doing your best to read the group's mood. A few glances in your direction soften over the course of the meal, but the gap remains. You're fed, sheltered, and for now, tolerated. But belonging, that's something you might never fully have. And lying there in your fur wrap, listening to the low hum of night insects, you finally admit the truth you've been circling since the beginning. In the Stone Age, survival isn't a solo achievement. It's a constant, exhausting negotiation between you, the land, the weather, the predators, and, most critically, the people around you. And in a world this unforgiving, one bad day, one small mistake can be the end. So now, as the firelight softens and the sharp edges of the day fade, imagine the camp settling in for the night. The spears are stacked nearby, tips catching a faint glimmer from the embers. The air smells of wood smoke and roasted meat, and beyond the ring of warmth, the forest hums with the quiet life of unseen creatures. You're lying close enough to feel the gentle pulse of heat from the fire, but far enough that the cool night air brushes your skin in little currents. The chatter from earlier has dwindled to a few low murmurs, then to nothing but the crackle and sigh of burning wood. The people around you shift in their furs, their breathing deepening, their bodies curling into the shapes of rest. The night feels wide and endless, but the glow of the fire makes a small, safe island in the dark. You let your eyes wander over the silhouettes, sharp lines softening into shadows, before closing them. Every ache in your muscles, every shiver from the last days, eases just a little in this moment. The wind outside the clearing rustles the leaves, and the sound blends with the steady hum of your own heartbeat. Here, for now, you're part of something bigger than yourself. Not fully, maybe not forever, but enough to make it through the night. And as the fire burns low, you breathe in slow, let it out softer, and let the Stone Age fade away into dream. Sweet dreams.